Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method. I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. And today's very special guest is Jeff Goldberg. He is the president of Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And Jeff is a sales coach and a trainer with almost 50 years experience. He works with both individuals and organizations internationally to help achieve measurable and sustainable sales increases. He's also the founder of the Sales Pro Network. So welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, Wendy. I'm excited to be speaking with you.
Well, I'm excited to be speaking with you too. So let's begin at the beginning. How did you become a sales trainer and a sales coach? How did that happen?
Wow.
What's the backstory?
Well, I guess it's important to know that my father, my grandfathers, and my stepfather were all career salespeople, and I swore I would never go into sales under any circumstances. When I went to college, I had no direction in life and took a part-time job at a furniture store a block away, doing customer service and ordering and things like that. And one day, one of the salespeople didn't show up. And the owner said, Jeff, go sell those people. I explained, I don't know how to do that. He said, here's what you do. Follow them around the showroom, smile a lot, write down what they want, come back to me, I'll give you the pricing. And that's what sales is all about. And almost 50 years later, I'm not only still selling, but I went into sales training. I owned a headhunting firm for a while. When I shut that down in about 2006, I was looking for my next gig, and I answered a blind ad at the New York Times, which turned out to be for, at the time, a well-known sales training company. And that turned out to be the job that I had really been meant to do all my life. I love helping people. Don't get me wrong, I love getting paid for helping people, but I love helping people, and sales management are the things I know best. So that's how Jeff Goldberg and Associates was born.
So has your advice on how to sell evolved from smile a lot, follow people around, and write down what they say?
A little bit, but there's still a kernel left in there. You know, what I don't teach is high pressure sales, or that you have to talk or convince or persuade, which is what most sales trainers will teach. I teach what I call conversational selling skills. It's really about how do you make friends with people, and how do you have an easygoing conversation that hopefully ends up with the prospect choosing to do business with you. It's a little bit involved, but not that much.
Okay. So you said that you don't teach high pressure sales. I think I'm not sure there are a lot of people that are teaching high pressure sales anymore. Are there?
I keep running into organizations which are really stuck in the 50s and the 60s mentality, where, you know, your job is to push, your job is to convince, your job is to persuade. They're pitching, which is a word I hate. So I think there's still a bunch of people out there laboring under the misconception that salespeople's job is to talk people into things, and I disagree. It's just to have great conversations. So I think there are still some out there still pushing that, yes.
No, I looked up the word sell in the dictionary, because I think a lot of people do think that selling is about pushing people into things that they don't actually want or need. But I looked up the word sell in the dictionary, and it didn't actually say anything about pushing people into things that they don't want or need. The dictionary definition of the word sell was actually to persuade about the value of whatever it is you're selling. So the concept of value is inherent in the definition of the word sell, which I think is often left out of the conversation.
Not in my conversations, that's for sure, and I'm sure not yours. To me, it's all about the value in the relationship. But using that word persuade, I think, still implies that you're trying to talk people into things. And you said it perfectly. I don't talk anybody into anything that they don't want, don't need, or can't afford. Not only do I not want to, I don't think I'm good enough at selling to be able to do that. I just want to have conversations with people. And by the way, Wendy, my first year, 8 years in sales after I left the furniture business was with Encyclopedia Britannica. So I was selling a $2,000 set of books almost 40 years ago that people could send their children to the library to use for free. And that was a high pressure sell. It was you buy tonight or you don't buy at all. And we were very good at pushing. It's just not the way I want to work anymore. And I don't think that's what the prospect wants either. I think today's prospect is way better educated than they were when I first started out in sales. And probably you did too. The internet certainly changed everything. Everything I read says that the buyer is 70% way through their journey before they even speak to somebody like you or me. So I know how to high pressure. It's just not what I want to do.
Okay. So I am curious about one thing. I'm switching gears here because I read in your bio that you have a background in theater and stand-up comedy. And,
I do.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, prior to my twins being born, I used to do a lot of local theater. I'm not Broadway quality, but I used to do a lot of local theater. I did a lot of children's theater because I used to get lead roles like Baloo the Bear in Jungle Book, things like that. And probably my favorite play to be in was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I was one of the brothers, and just too much fun. But what really helps me a lot is stand-up comedy. I've always used humor when I'm doing training because I'm assuming like you, I'm sometimes in front of an audience of salespeople for 7 or 8 hours at a time, giving them training on selling skills or prospecting skills or whatever. And you've got to do something to keep people awake and involved. And humor has always been my thing. I was a class clown in school. I never shut up. I never raised my hand. So it's kind of a natural to use humor to keep people involved. And 2 years ago, on the advice of my coach, I started doing stand-up comedy. And I find that it's really selling. You're selling your jokes to an audience and hoping that they pay you with laughter. It's a heck of a lot of fun.
So I am curious. I have interviewed several people on this show that also had some form of theater background. I used to be a ballet dancer, and I'm wondering what impact did your theater background have, if any? Like, what do you feel that you learned from being in theater that helped you in your sales and then sales training career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things would certainly be that in the theater, when you're doing performance after performance after performance of the same exact thing at the same exact time, singing the same songs, doing the same moves, you can easily get stale and forget that it's the audience's first time seeing it. So I was taught by a director very early on, every time is the first time. It doesn't matter if you've done the same show, like I don't know about you, I assume that like me, you love Broadway. I saw Phantom of the Opera 6 times. Same show every single time, same gesture, same songs at the same moments, but it seems like they're doing it off the top of their head. So I believe the thing that really helped me the most was remembering that every time I'm meeting with a prospect, I can't be bored, even though I might have said the same things a million times or asked the same questions a million times, because it's the first time for them. It's the first time for them hearing it and the first time for them to get to know me. So it's keep it fresh every single time.
Well, that's interesting because I find the repetition is what helps me keep it fresh because I'll just speak to the dance experience. But when you're a dancer and you're doing the same step every night, you get up, curtain goes up, 8 o'clock, you go out there and dance and you're doing the same steps over and over again. You've got that muscle memory. You stop thinking. It's just automatic. So you can simply be. And so I found that to be very, very helpful in speaking with prospects because it's possible to just be. You don't have to think, worry about what do I say next because you've done it so many times.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. In theater, not dance, but the goal for the director is how do I get my people off book? As you, I'm sure, know, the book is the script. And you can't really rehearse well on stage until you're off book, until you don't need to look at your script while you're rehearsing. So that allows you, once you have that memory, to now put in the emphasis where you want to. So yes, like you, even though I may have said the same things a million times, I'm paying attention to how my prospect is reacting. It's the same in stand-up comedy, by the way. So I'm actually in a contest starting Wednesday night. It's called the Long Island Laugh Off. I'll be competing, I think, against 100 other comedians who want to be known as the funniest comedian on Long Island or funniest new comedian on Long Island. And I certainly have a set that I'm going to be doing, but I'll also be looking at the audience and listening for opportunities to interact with them. And you can only do that if you've memorized your set so well that you can do it and be able to go off book, just like in the theater and just like when you're selling.
Absolutely. If you have to worry about what's the next step, you're really in bad shape. So let's talk a little bit about coaching salespeople then. What are some do's and don'ts for any of our managers, our sales managers or business owners that manage sales teams that maybe are listening today? What are some things that they should think about when coaching salespeople in, do's and also don'ts?
Sure. Well, the first thing I would suggest is if there's an owner of a business who's managing their salespeople, they need to hire somebody like you or me to come and manage them for them. I don't know if you do that. I do that on an outsourced basis. Most business owners, and by the way, that offering, every time I get a gig doing that, managing a company on an outsourced basis, it's because the salespeople are reporting directly to the owner of the company, who A, does not know how to manage salespeople, and B, is wasting way too much time trying to do that instead of running their company. So my advice is hire a professional, whether it's full-time or outsourced like you or me. In terms of coaching salespeople, what I found is that just like sales has evolved somewhat over the years, so has coaching and so has managing. So gone are the days of the manager who says, do it my way. This is how you're going to do it. Just listen to me. I am the Lord. And by the way, that was a challenge for me because having done this a long, long time, that was the way I was brought up. The sales team listens to you. You're the leader. You got to show. You don't show any emotion. You just go out and show them what to do. And today's leader has to be more evolved. You can't just expect people to do things just because you say so. You have to show them why it's good, just like in any sale, why it's good for them. What's the WIFM, an acronym which I'm sure you and I both know, WIIFM, what's in it for me? And that's what salespeople today are listening to. So when coaching, you really have to be a little bit vulnerable and admit that you're not perfect. Let them know that you're a human. Certainly let them know that you are on their side. And the whole goal is, how do I help you make more money, Mr. or Ms. Salesperson, so that you can take care of your family and support our company? And be understanding that not everybody's going to do it the same way. On the positive side, I'm a big cheerleader. I'm a supporter. I'm certainly not a screamer or a hollerer, although I've worked for bosses like that in the past. I'm all about empowerment. I'm all about giving people the tools, exactly what they need. And the other thing I think sales managers and sales leaders need to know is not all salespeople are the same. While they certainly have similar characteristics in many instances, they're very different people. And the smart leader takes the time to get to know each salesperson, not only as a salesperson, but as a person, so that they can manage the individual rather than as a group.
So I'm curious, where does asking questions of the salespeople fit into what you've just described? Clearly that's part of getting to know them. What kind of questions do you ask?
Yes, it's the most important thing in selling as far as I'm concerned, and it's the most important thing in managing. Rather than just telling, you have to be asking questions to find out who they are, what they're committed to, what are their goals, what do they think they've done well, and what do they think they need improvement. That's the way I do field coaching. Sometimes companies pay me to ride in the field with their salespeople and coach them. And after we get done with a sales call, I know what they're expecting, which is me to tell them everything they did wrong. And we'll certainly get to that. But my first question is always, what do you think you did well? Because I like to start out on a positive, and I let them go first. Because if they can say it, it's much better than if it comes from me. By the way, often they do come up with all the good things that they did. Sometimes they don't, and I'll throw in a few more. And then the next one is, what do you think you could have done better? Or what do you think you could have done differently? It's never, ever, what did you do wrong? You don't want to make people feel like they're wrong, because people are doing what they think they should be doing. They're doing their best. By the way, that was something my coach taught me. Everybody's doing their best every day. It may not be good enough for us. It may not be what we want, but everybody's trying their best. So I'm there to find out, what do you think you did well? And then I'm going to share what I think they did well. And then what do you think you could have done differently or better? And then I'll share that too. But you always want to leave people, as opposed to some of the bosses I had coming up, which were hollers and screamers. I always want to leave people feeling they learned something and they walked away feeling good, because as you and I both know, sales is not an easy gig. I'm sure it beats digging ditches in the hot sun, although I can't prove that because I've never dug ditches in the hot sun. But it's not easy. It's mentally draining. We're just like on stage. We're on every moment.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, do you work with newer salespeople or more experienced salespeople, or both? And what's the difference in coaching one versus the other?
Yeah, I work with both. I've worked not only with new and experienced salespeople, but also new and experienced sales managers. In fact, I once coached a VP of sales who had just gotten the job, his first job as a VP of sales. His job was to build out a 400-person team across the country, and he had no experience doing that. So I've coached people at all levels. The difference in coaching newer hires as opposed to tenured people, I find, is typically the level of resistance. I personally do not like to work with somebody who's very experienced when their company is forcing them into the coaching. I think it's a recipe for disaster. I don't want anybody there who doesn't really want to be there. But assuming they do want the coaching, it's simply a matter of newer people, much easier to do because they don't have bad habits yet. They suck everything up like a sponge. They can't wait to hear the next, what I call pearl of wisdom, that's going to come out of your mouth or my mouth. Whereas experienced people, they often, even though they want the help, maybe I'm just using an example. Maybe somebody's making $125,000 a year, but they know they can make $150 or $175 or $200. Even when they come to you for coaching, the more experienced person is often, I'll use the term fighting, not really fighting, but they have their set ways. And it's, well, why can't I do it this way, Jeff? Or why shouldn't I do it that way? Well, why are you paying me the amount of money you're investing with me to give you advice and help you if all you want to do is argue with me and tell me why you're right? So that's what I find with more experienced people. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes they just suck it up too, but that would be the difference between the two. And I enjoy both.
Okay. We're going to pause right now for a word from our sponsor. But then when we come back, Jeff, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the difference between new salespeople and more experienced salespeople and working with them. But we now have a word from our sponsor, the Salesology Vault. Just about every guest that I've interviewed on the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast has had a free gift for our listeners. So what we've done is we've taken all of those gifts and we put them together all in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault, and it is packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts, and we add another gift every week. We release a podcast, we add a gift. You can log in as often as you like and download as many gifts as you'd like. It's all free. And then come back the next week and download another gift. So go to bit.ly/gift vault, or the link to the Salesology Vault is in the show notes. So go to the notes, click on the link, download your gift. You will be glad you did. And we are back with Jeff Goldberg, president of Jeff Goldberg and Associates. So, Jeff, I want to return to this idea of coaching more experienced people versus coaching beginners. I recently had a very funny experience with a coach. He was not a sales coach, but he was telling me a lot of his clients are very resistant, and I signed up to work with him. And he didn't ask me any questions, and he started just sharing his advice, but he was making a lot of assumptions. And I had to keep saying, no, that's not the situation. And it occurred to me that I knew the reason that he told me so many of his clients were so very resistant. And I think that sometimes when we're coaching people, it's really important to meet them where they are, wherever they are. And to do that, you do have to ask a lot of questions. So could you go into a little bit more detail about the kinds of questions that you ask when you're working with someone to just kind of get a handle on where they're coming from, what their goals are, what they want?
Sure. And that's easy. In my first session, and my coaching clients know that this is going to happen before the first session takes place, the very first thing is exactly what you just said. What are your goals? Let's talk about what you're committed to. And I'm very big on that word. I actually will sit and let them know, I don't care what you want. I don't care what you hope for. I don't care what your dreams are. I don't care what your wishes are. As a human being, I do. But as a coach, I only care about one thing. What are you committed to? Because as far as I'm concerned, commitment drives everything. You want to lose weight? You can want to lose weight all you want, but until you're committed to losing weight, it's not going to happen. Committed to getting better at selling, committed to making X amount of money, whatever the goal is, you've got to be committed. So that's the first discussion we have. And then I need to know, what is their personal financial goal for the year? First thing I want to do is I want to make sure it's realistic, because if you made $50,000 this year and you're going to make $5 million next year, is it possible? It's possible, but it's not very likely. So my first goal is, how do I help them set a realistic but achievable goal that's a reach that you can actually get to? So we work on that first. Then my clients come to each session one of two ways. Either they come with an agenda, which is my preference. Jeff, here's what I want to work on today. And whatever it is, that's what I'm going to help them with. Or I simply ask this question: what's the thing that's most keeping you from earning more money in sales right now? And whatever that thing is, that's what we work on. That's the only question I really need to ask up front. So if they say, well, I'm pretty good at selling, but I'm not getting enough appointments, great, let's work on prospecting. What are you doing now? What would you like to do? What are you willing to do? Which is a big question for me. I could show people 5, 6, 10 different ways to prospect, including the telephone, which I still believe in, and I know you do too. But if you're not willing to do them, they're useless. Like me, I'm not willing to pick up the phone and cold call anymore. I built my business that way. I do it once a month for a little while just to make sure that what I'm sharing with people still works. But I'd personally rather live in my car than ever have to cold call again for a living. But I've become very good at other things. So I'm asking them what would really help them the most, and that's what we're going to work on. And then whatever those things are, I'm going to get deep inside and find out, why aren't they doing it? What do they need to improve on? How is that going to affect them? Because at the end of the day, we're all motivated by that. What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? And if somebody says, well, I don't know, I guess I just want to make more money. Well, why do you want to make more money? My biggest thing about selling and coaching is really what you said, asking questions. To me, sales is not about your great presentation skills, your strong closing skills. It's asking the right questions and listening actively to the answers. Two things that most people, and this is a technical sales training term that you probably know, they suck at it. They're horrible listeners and they're horrible question askers. To me, that's what selling is all about, and that's what coaching is about too. And as opposed to many coaches, which I know are old coaches, which pull the answers out of the coachee, that's not me. The reason that people invest with me is because I'm going to find out what the situation is, and I'm going to give them my best advice rather than them having to drag themselves to it.
Yeah, our ballet teachers did not drag us anywhere. We had to show up in class. So tell us a little bit about the Sales Pro Network.
Sure. I was talking to my coach a few years ago, and I said, I have a great idea. And she said, what's that? And I said, I'm going to produce a bunch of sales training videos that I can sell to the public. I think that what I have to offer is easy to use, easy to implement. And I think I'm ripping off the public and myself by not having something that they can buy online, because not everybody works for a corporation that can afford to bring somebody like you or me in or pay for private coaching. So she said, that's a brilliant idea. You should absolutely do that. Who are you going to sell it to? And I was like, I don't understand the question. I'm going to sell it to salespeople. She goes, good. What salespeople? And after she asked me a few more questions, I suddenly realized what she was getting at. I don't have a built-in audience. And she said, you need an audience that likes you so that they'll actually listen to your offer when you have it. And that's how the Sales Pro Network was born. It was really a little bit selfish, but I also am committed to elevating the profession of sales. I believe that we still have a bad reputation in sales. Many people still think we're liars, thieves, and scumbags willing to do and say anything to take their money. And So I'm committed to elevating the profession of sales. And that's what the Sales Pro Network is about. It's a place where salespeople, it's a Facebook group, so it's free. People can come and hang out. They can network with each other. They can ask questions. Any of the guests like yourself who've been on my podcast for the Sales Pro Network are welcome to come in there and post and give advice and offer help. So it's really a place for salespeople to grow and earn. And as you know, every Friday at 10 a.m., I do a live interview with somebody like you who can add value to the profession of sales. That's what the Sales Pro Network is all about.
Okay. And yes, indeed, you did interview me. So thank you for that. And we have the link to the Sales Pro Network. You've given us that, and we're going to post that in the show notes. So anyone, if you would like more information or you want to join the Sales Pro Network, as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. So you have been listening to Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders with our special guest, Jeff Goldberg, president of Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And if you found value in listening to today's podcast, then think about one business owner, one entrepreneur, one sales professional, sales leader that you know that you think might also find value in listening to this podcast. And please do share the link with them. And till we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.